Welcome back. This is an end of the month recap. I know I've been away for the past 2 weeks. I didn't get a chance to do a video for the past 2 weeks, but pretty much not much has changed with the portfolio. I've basically been adding to the pretty much the same holdings that I spoke of the last time. We got a couple of dividends coming in for the month, and basically most of my buys, as you can see right here, have been more some of the tech and recovery plays because I believe the market is going to be trading higher, and I'm not quite sure. I really don't think that real estate is going to be pulling back, and so that's why I've been adding a little bit more into Redfin. Obviously, charge point with Joe Biden talking about everything basically being EV, which is why we're moving into things like ChargePoint and Neo. Microsoft is always good to hold. Obviously, Square is basically like your fintech type of play. Um, VIR is basically my biotech play for COVID-19. They were working on pairing up with GlaxoSmithKline for a medication that supposedly reduces the length of stay and, of course, risk of death. Norwegian for the obvious reopening play. We've got Roblox. I really do like Roblox. They do very good software. It'll probably be the future for children's video games, etc. We've got Chegg basically buying back into the study from home. I do believe that we will see more of a push for the at home, or at the very least for distance learning. Chegg is a really good play. Um, Chemical Corp, CCJ, is basically my play for not renewables, minerals. As a mineral stock, and I believe with the yeah the story, the narrative for inflation, we could see um basically minerals and etc. Start to rise again, even though China has tried to do what they can to stem basically the hoarding and the price action. I really don't think in the long term that they'll be able to, and so that's why I've been adding to these plays, and of course Chewy for the pet lovers. America, especially here in America, primarily overwhelmingly the population is single, and so we'll probably see more people having pets, etc. And so Chewy, I think, is a good play for the long term. And so most of these companies offer services, right? Neo car maker, renewable battery, Microsoft as a service, Square as a service, VIR for the biotech, Norwegian for their service. But most of these plays in terms of Chewy, Square, Microsoft, Neo, ChargePoint, all kind of have like renewing sort of subscriptions, services, etc. And so that's basically where most of this money has gone. In terms of Peloton, I was kind of kicking myself. Before we touch on Peloton, let's touch on oil. So the narrative has been for quite some time. As you can see, the oil futures are up. I had stated multiple times that 65 was going to be basically our resistance towards the upside. We're basically trading in a channel between 58 and 65, and you see on the long term on the chart going way back, as you can see, 65 going way back here, right? 65 all the way back here has basically been somewhat of an area of support. And so once you break that area of support, you can see right here where we basically pulled back off of 65s, and again here, and then here, right? So basically 65 for quite some time has been an area of support and resistance. Looking back at the chart, you should be able to see it back here. Back in 2018, you can see right here, hit 64s, couldn't hold it, it finally came down. We breached, and then it became an area of support, right? Area of support, and finally we see the breach to the downside with a the breach to the downside with a retest right here, right? Same thing here where the stock tries to re-rally, where the futures and the oil try to re-rally back up, and of course it continues to fall down. We see it again over here, right? 65s, falls off, can't maintain 65s. Right, so this is back in 2019, again right here. Right, this is in the beginning of January of 2020. We see oil sell off. JP Morgan, like I said way back when I first got into ExxonMobil, that they had called for a 85 price target on oil. I'm thinking oil will go higher. Places like California are already seeing over $5 a gallon for oil. And of course, as the summer months come in roaring hot, basically people are going to be who have been forced to stay home or everything's been closed. And as things start to open up, people are going to be driving more, etc. This, of course, will have an impact on food prices. Basically, anything that utilizes oil, plastics, etc., are going to go up in price because oil, and when it gets refined, um, basically is in many different products, makeup, etc., plastics. It's served as a wide variety of products that are utilized, even in EV, right? Even in EV vehicles, for those who want to utilize, for example, like windmills, you still need oil for a lot of these things. And so even though the narrative has been everything is going to be green, but what we're actually seeing is oil moving higher. There's been a lot of news of there was a refinery that went on fire. There was another refinery that was forced to close down, etc. Right? So there's a big narrative we saw with the pipeline being hacked. The one in Michigan that was forced to get shut down, which was between Michigan and Canada, and that was basically run by Enbridge. Enbridge had a pipeline shut down by the Governor Whitmer back in it was about maybe less than a month ago or so. She forced them to shut down, supposedly because of a leak. And so what all this is doing is going to cause prices to go higher. Basically, everything that requires transportation. So think of like food stocks, right? You transport food back and forth on the different trucks. That's basically going to cost more. There is also a trucker shortage within the country, and so that's going to cause prices to rise. And we're seeing inflation taking hold. And of course, this is all artificial inflation. It's important to understand, even though the government is printing a lot of money, a lot of what we're seeing is artificial inflation. Otherwise, you would see gold basically at all-time highs. Gold pulled back. We're seeing a bit of a move to the upside. Very similarly, for example, with Bitcoin, right? Because if Bitcoin is supposedly going to be the new gold, Bitcoin will be moving higher. We're not really seeing that. And very similarly with, as you can see here, that if people were really worried about inflation to that respect, we would be seeing the interest rates on the 10-year as well as TLT, right? TLT basically not moving. So the narrative is inflation, but the real problem is supply chain constriction, I should say. And a lot of that, of course, is related to governmental policies. What we're really watching is the powers that be, whoever it is that is running America. It's definitely not Joe Biden, but the powers that be are basically putting all these false flags out about the narrative is inflation, but then you see articles about people staying home because they're getting paid more, to stay home than they are to go to work. We're seeing people wanting more of a higher wage. That all translates to higher wages, and higher wages translate to higher prices. And all these different food stocks, like for example, Tyson, Kellogg's, Coca-Cola, have all stated that they are going to be raising their prices. And so that will translate into higher stock prices. And of course, it will translate into perhaps higher dividends moving forward. And this is basically where I have been placing most of my money. And of course, still holding on to Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo still holding basically trading between 44 and 50. 50 will be a breakout. We'll have to wait and see where Wells Fargo is going to go, but that's basically, as you can see, for quite some time, all the way back in 2017, we're talking Wells Fargo for the banks, which is the one bank that I am in. Wells Fargo holding above 44 despite all the choppiness that has gone on in the market. Basically, I got out of Peloton. I took my profit probably a little too early than I had wanted. I had actually was hoping that the stock was going to pull back at this area of resistance. It hadn't broken $100 almost the entirety of 2020, from September all the way through. We haven't seen a breach of 100, so I was hoping that the stock was going to pull back more, but unfortunately I ended up having an average of like 91, 92, and then end up covering at 102s, and then the stock traded higher. So I'm basically out of Peloton, made about 400 change on the position, and I'm adding it actually to my Robinhood account. So I started a Robinhood account for growth, and I'm basically leaving. This is going to remain my dividend portfolio. So the last 8,000 or so that we're going to add to this account is basically primarily going to go into dividends. And that, so the little bit of risk that I have here, you can see what my risk stocks are right here. And I have a little bit into tech right here. So most of these stocks are probably going to be in my Robinhood account. I think I can show it right here, especially on the dividend section. So this is what we're looking at for the month. We're looking at about 380 for the month of June. Let me go over here. This is basically my Robinhood account. I just started. I've got a little bit of money in the account. Let me go to back to dashboard and let's go to Robinhood. So you can see this is the Robinhood account that I started. I've also got a little bit of crypto in the account. So I've got overall, I've got about 4,400 in my account. But these are basically my holdings. Apple, BGS, have a little bit of income stocks. CCJ I will probably eventually pull out of. I am holding on to it for a little bit of growth. But of course, Chegg, Chewy, Disney, Jeppy, Peloton, Redfin, Square, and T. Those will basically be what I'm holding on to for growth and stability, with a little bit of income in companies. For example, like Apple pays a dividend, BGS, CCJ pays a dividend. Disney does not, Jeppy does. And of course, T will split, and it will be basically both long-term growth as well as income once the company actually splits apart. That's basically what I have been adding to. There hasn't been a lot of crazy news, but I'm just paying attention a lot to the inflation narrative, right? Prices of wood have been coming down, but still holding up above the area of resistance. Still holding on, for example, to stocks like Rio. Rio again trading back up, and again pays a solid dividend. Is basically mineral stocks, so I'll probably hold on to this for quite some time, as I do think with the inflation narrative that minerals will continue to trade higher. Americans will see higher prices on food stocks. It's not exactly going to be the best of times moving forward, especially with 2022. In terms of real estate, I'm still holding on to two ladder. Most of my real estate stocks, I'm holding on to all these stocks, as I believe real estate is going to trade higher moving forward. I do not think real estate is going to be coming down. And so basically I'm holding, oh, excuse me, let's go back to dividend. So as you can see, GSK is basically what I'm holding on to. Two is real estate. MO I added, of course, MO I added more. See, LTC, I'm basically going to be adding more into LTC for the monthly dividend. And I think that's basically it. Not a ladder also, real estate. What else are we looking at? Iron Mountain, I did cover a little bit. I think I talked about this last time, but I still have half of my position in Mountain. So I'm still good. I took some profits, but not all. I still have half of my position, and we'll leave it there moving forward. But there really isn't a lot in terms of what's going on. Wheat stocks did trade a little bit higher. If you are in wheat stocks, for example, like Canopy Growth, popping above the moving average. We'll take an even closer look at this. I do believe wheat stocks on volume probably coming in for the earnings this week, so this is something you want to pay attention to. As you can see, we're poking ahead both above the resistance and above the 200-day, so we could see a huge pop from 26 and make a move. Your next area of resistance is going to be what looks like 28, and then 30, and then 34 are going to be your areas of resistance. Your major area of resistance is going to be 34, and you'll have a little bit of resistance between 28 and 30. As you can see right here, you can see the levels of basically where the stock traded. This is where we came up to 28 and subsequently fell off. And of course, the 200-day and the level here is going to give us a little bit of trouble. We'll see what happens today during the market open. Another stock, for example, like what's it called? Palantir, also moving above, pulled hard back below this major area of resistance right here. So if you do see a pop above 24 and a hold, Palantir could trade up to 30 as well. So those some of the stocks that you might look forward to. Kron is another company. Kron is another stock, another wheat stock. This one is held a lot by MO. MO has a huge stake in Kron. Kron is another wheat stock, and it saw a huge move to the upside, and I hold that in my Webull account. I've got 300 and something shares of both Kron and CGC that I'm holding on to. So we'll see what happens moving forward. These are basically in the Webull account. That's basically what I'll be paying attention to as I sold calls. I sold nine something calls. We'll see what happens on those. I do have about 100 shares free. Let me see if I can open this up. Go ahead and open this up, and then we'll wrap this video up. There we go. Unlock. Looks like not really up all that much. Did take a little bit of a hit. I was long calls on MO. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. I was short puts on Neo. That was a loss. Let me see if I can move this over real quick. You can see what I'm holding. Right, Viacom, we're holding 150, 200 of Kron. We've got 200 of Palantir, and 300 of CGC is basically what we're holding on to in the Weeble account. Unfortunately, none of those option plays worked out, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, took a little bit of a loss, but all in all, I was actually down a little bit in the account, and of course, holding on, we made all that money back, plus some, because we were basically selling. We were selling calls on the way down. So this will be what I'll be paying attention to during the week: Kron, CGC, Palantir, and then basically this account will be like just primarily going into dividends. And so I did want to touch on just on the last thing. As you can see right here, for the end of the month, we closed out almost 2% higher. At the very least, there was quite a bit of choppiness, so we're not losing any money. And then most importantly, as you can see right here, we took in $443 in dividends. So a quarter of what we gained was gained from dividends. And so this is important because it really adds to the account. If I added no money, to my account, at the very least for this month, my account would have added $443.58 in terms of dividends, and all of that would have been reinvested right back into my dividend account, so that the next time I get paid dividends, I'll get paid a little bit more. And this is basically how you compound interest, or you compound moving forward, which is basically the purpose of this account, right? Going forward, let's see if this will show. Obviously, currently, annually, I'm not sure, I don't remember if I completely updated, but this is probably as close as where I am right now. So annually, with my small account, we are annually getting 4,400 every single month. Basically, the goal is to get this to 6,000, right? By at the very least, by the end of the year. That's the goal, is to get this to an annual income of 6,000, which basically translates to 500 a month in recurring dividends. And so basically, no matter what happens, these are quality companies. You can see primarily the stocks that I hold are all solid companies that all pay dividends. They all earn money. And of course, these are things that are going to be good to invest in, like real estate, food stocks, etc. Right? Companies that offer services. These are companies that are making money. SO Energy, cigarettes, right? Between BTI and MO, Walgreens for the vaccine play, real estate, IBM again for everybody's got their hand in the COVID cookie jar. Avivi, a solid company, Coca-Cola, a little bit here into Pfizer, nothing special. I could basically dump this, but at my price point, it pays a solid dividend. I'll just like never add to it and just leave it be. That's basically going to be it. That was basically the coverage for the month. Definitely what to look out for. In terms of last thing, Bitcoin holding between, I did buy some Bitcoin in the Robinhood, bought some Bitcoin, and I bought some Ethereum Classic. And I basically loaded up down here between like 33, 34s, and 35s. I didn't buy too much, right? I didn't buy a whole bunch. Spent about $1,200 and about 800 in Doge, and then about another 700 or so in Ethereum Classic. Basically bought everything on the pullback. We're trading here at about 34, holding against the 30,000 resistance, as you can see right here. Right, this is basically your support. We're creating a new area of support for those who do trade cryptos, as you can see right here. We are starting to create a new area of support at 34,000. So the moving average is moving higher. So the stock potentially, not the stock, Bitcoin could potentially trade higher if we get a little bit of volume to the upside. That's basically going to be it. I'm going to leave it here. Thanks for watching, and I will check you out next time.